Auzubillahiminash-shaytanir-rajim. Bismillahir-rahmanir-rahim. Assalamualaikum. Ji ayanu pakhairagale ni hao chunushumme washmale. Ohio gozaimasu. Guten Morgen. Hola. Bonjour. Privyet. Kaifa hal? Hale shuma chatore. Ahlan wa sahlan marhaba. Buna. Mucho. Gracias. Swabia. Balli kare aaya. Hosh Galdin and I, Hosayo, and thank you very much, everybody, for tuning into PTV World. You certainly watching World this morning. Alongside my very well-learned colleague who happens to be Miss Haja Satti. I happen to be Shahzad Hassan Khan, and we hope and pray that everybody out there is ready to kickstart their day with us. First things first, hello Haja, how are you doing today?
And thank you so much for introducing me. You're always so kind, for introducing me so well. I don't think so I deserve that.
You truly deserve it, 100%.
Okay, thank you so much. So Shahzad, it was crazy rain yesterday, and we see that, how there was so much flooding, especially in the Pindi. And sometimes I'm really glad and, thankful. I'm always thankful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but for this purpose that, we are living in this Putwar plateau, because, it's a certain height and there's not that much, urban flooding as it is in Karachi or in some other cities in the Pakistan. And of course, we have a lot more reasons to be thankful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So, ladies and gentlemen, so Shahzad was asking me before the cameras rolled and that why are you so much against consumerism? Are you in the favor of consumerism?
Well, that's not what my point was. My point was that, why do we actually have to, I mean, it was the sole reason why I asked you this question off camera was that this conversation was supposed to be off camera. But now since you've asked me on camera, so, okay, every person from a different walk of life will have a very different perspective of life and different choices too as well. But, as anchor persons, what I feel is that, that you cannot really impose your choice onto people who actually watch you every single day. So that was the very perspective of it. And, so I'm not against you being against consumerism. All I'm saying is that, when we start to project it the way we think life is, we do not relate with a lot of people as well. And that's exactly what we will be talking about in the first segment too as well, because we have been joined by somebody who actually does the same thing we do too.
Right, of course. So, I am against the consumerism. I'm against this culture. I'm not imposing my opinion on other people. It's just that I have a very strong opinion on that, right?
Why? Okay,
Everyone is entitled to their opinions, no?
True.
Right? Okay, so I do feel that, consumerist culture has somehow mixed our wants and our needs. And resultantly, according to our Islamic perspective, I don't know what is the alternative of the nafs in the English language, but I do feel that, our nafs is very overpowering when it comes to the consumerism. That's why I'm against it, right?
Okay, do you think that it varies in between men and women? Because my impulse of buying things or consuming things might be on the very lower side as well. Because I might not have believed in brands, I might not have spent on them as well. Yes.
Right.
I know that, she's going to bring it up as well. I love cars, I do spend on them. This is one thing which I love the most. But I would never ever go an extra mile, buy a 200,000 rupee shirt or probably a pant or a trouser or something other than that. But it totally comes back to your choices as well. I mean, for example, that I do spend quite a lot of money on my fitness too as well. Alhamdulillah, shukr, alhamdulillah, Allah makes me able to do that, which is why I'm able to kind of spend for that as well. But it is in the right direction, because I believe that other than, spending on to the doctors, it's best that I spend in the gym too as well. But yes, we will come back to this very topic. First up, let's see what's happening all around the globe. I think we have a good news early in the morning today. So why don't you go ahead and take a lead?
Right. Thank you so much. So the government has taken the revolutionary steps as the Economic Coordination Committee approves the supply of gas, RLNG and electricity at a subsidized rates to 5 exporting sectors. I think we badly need this respite, right? The gas RLNG rates have been fixed at $9 per MMBTU for the export sectors across the country. The committee has fixed electricity rates of US 9 cents per kilowatt for the export sectors across the country. The new electricity rates will be applicable from 1st of August 2022 for all the 5 export sectors. The Economic Coordination Committee has also approved a supplementary grant of 75 crore rupees to the Ministry of Information and Broadcasting.
Wow, I believe it stays the same in winters too as well, because that's when we really need hot showers.
Right, that's true. And I do feel that, our industry was really struggling for quite a lot of time, especially when it comes to the export sectors, and government giving this opportunity to the exports industry, I think that's a big initiative.
Obviously, it's great to see that that finally, we're getting in charge of, our domestic affairs too as well when it comes down to energy. And yes, obviously in the past 2 months, we have witnessed the energy crisis
Right.
too as well. But now moving on, ladies and gentlemen, all right, I think this is one's my favorite. Really don't need to look at the paper too as well. So it is Pakistan's touring Sri Lanka. The first test match was won by Pakistan. It's the second test match with 3 tail enders left. Pakistan for the loss of 7 wicket was 191 when we actually got started with the day 2 as well. Hassan Ali's on the crease too as well, alongside Yasir Shah. Yasir Shah can actually be very fruitful, and it's because of the fact that Yasir Shah has actually scored a century against Australia too as well. And Hassan Ali can chip in a lot of 6s and 4s, and if they get together for a partnership, ladies and gentlemen, and if we bring down the trail from 187 to at least 87, I think that we still stand a fair chance of winning this test match too as well. On the 4th day, the weather forecast tells that it's going to rain at Galle, Sri Lanka. And if it rains, I think it will be difficult to kind of come down to a decision whether if one team is going to win or not, because so I hope that that the tail enders are actually going to do a fantastic job. Hassan Ali, Naseem Shah, and then Yasir, is on crease too as well. And so I hope that Pakistan's going to win. This is something which we have been talking about earlier. But the only flaw in between was that when they dropped Azhar Ali, they brought in Fawad Alam. So Babar Azam actually had to come up one number earlier too as well. So Babar Azam was coming out at number 3. And imagine, so when he actually kind of changes his number, his averages dropped from 60 to 25, which obviously was very chaotic, and we saw that too in the first innings of Pakistan, which is still going on.
Oh, so much excitement and passion coming from Shehzad, when it comes to the cricket. Okay, so other than the cricket, what other sports are you interested in, Shehzad?
I mean, okay, so I've been...
Are you into the adventures? Or
I am, and I know where you're taking it, but you'll actually give me a minute to kind of reminisce about all the sports I've played, and I keep on playing. So I've always been an avid player of football, basketball. When we talk about basketball,
I think your height gives you leverage, right?
I think I'm tall because of playing basketball, because entire my school life, my college life, I've been playing basketball. I've represented our university in the Higher Education Commission sports festivals too as well. We've won quite a lot of titles. When I was in Berry College, we won there as well. Then polo. And I mean, when we talk about polo, I think it's one of the adventure sports too as well. It's very dangerous. It's not that easy. It's not a run of the mill too as well. Then paragliding, then parasailing. I've done it all. I've even jumped off a plane too as well.
Oh, mashallah. That's quite an adventure.
Yeah, it was quite an adventure. And I was so reluctant about this other gentleman carrying me as well. And I was like, okay, why can't I do it all alone? He was like, sir, you will actually have to go through a course, and only then you can do that. But paragliding, ladies and gentlemen, we have a lot of adventure sports over here in Pakistan. We actually want to share a package with you guys. Go ahead, take a look. And if you guys feel like doing it, you have a lot of opportunities in Pakistan to do it too as well. Go ahead.
With the goal to fly in the face of K2, paragliders Tom D. Darlada, Raman Morales and Horatio Lawrence reached the world's second highest mountain and accomplished this next to impossible feat. Addressing the press conference in Islamabad, Tom D. Darlada said that the last 3 weeks were spent by the adventurers flying new lines by paraglider, collapsible foot-launch wings, relying on pockets of warm air to climb above Pakistan's famously spectacular mountains. With mud challenging conditions and bad weather, the trio achieved what sounds almost impossible. Hiking up to the launching areas that were usually 800 meters high carrying heavyweight gear, the team launched by inflating their wings above their heads and running down a steep slope and then soaring into the air, accomplishing their goals in the face of the breathtaking views on one of the highest altitudes of Earth. The team enjoyed 10 great flying days. On 3 occasions they got to K2. On the 4th, they made the Broad Peak, and on some occasions they tagged both on the same day. They've also explored close to Mustaq Tower, Gasherbrum and Masherbrum. Talking to PTV World, Tom D. Darlada said that Pakistan is beautiful and people of Pakistan are amazing.
Beside the flying, which is exceptional here in Pakistan, it's probably one of the best in the world. I would say to people who want to come to Pakistan or who have heard about Pakistan to just go for it. The hospitality of the people is incredible. I've been here I came here for 15 years, many times, and there's the nicest people on earth, So for me, it's always a big pleasure to come back, and I can't wait actually to be back again.
The goal of Tom and the team is to go through the footage they captured, as he added that it's some of the most extraordinary high-altitude aerial footage ever captured in this part of the world. The footage has never been seen before, and to shoot this quality even 5 years ago would not have been possible.
Feels like ecstasy when you're on top of this world too as well, and you're like, okay, you know, I really want to prolong this flight, but unfortunately if something goes wrong, you know, you certainly do not want to be in that position. So please make sure that you check all the apparatus before you take off for your flight. But my question from my colleague would be, would you ever do that?
Okay, I might try that, but you know, one of my friend was telling me she went on a honeymoon to Hawaii, and I think these sort of sports are really common there, right? And she said that that company, you know, actually got me signed, you know, that sort of a certificate that you know, in case of the death, we are not responsible.
You have to
for
sign that.
Yeah, so I was like, okay, you know, that might create a lot of fear in me, and I might decide, you know, that I'm not going on for that thing. But you know, I guess there's a lot of, you know, adventure and adrenaline rush, and I don't know. How
you know,
much
because you know, just now when I went to Malam Jabba, you know, for that zip line, it happens. They claim that, you know, it is the tallest or the highest zip line in Pakistan as well. I was a little scared, but once I took off, I was like, yeah, nothing can happen now, so it's best.
It's the same like, you know, the roller coaster ride. Have you gone
exactly?
in that?
Yes, I've gone to Six Flags. I mean, I've taken a lot of them, but I think that, you know, with age now, I'm thinking, okay, I really need to take a step back. I really need to keep myself safe for my children, my future generations, so that I'm there for the important decision making. That's important. But now when it comes down to decision making, I think there's one thing which I decided when I was growing up, and that was to actually work for television. You know, so I was never allowed to watch a lot of movies. So I watched this one film from a keyhole, the entire movie, because we weren't allowed to watch movies. And you know, so my father, mother, my khala and my khalu, they would actually watch movies together. So they were in it, and we were not allowed. So, and ever since then, I always wanted to work for television. So, and which is why I did. And a lot of people do take this decision in their life. When I took it, a lot of people used to call Marasi or Patani Kya and, you know, different names. Now, alhamdulillah, everybody wants to take a selfie, want to have a minute with you. Shukr, alhamdulillah. Not that I have done something extra, but I think Allah has actually bestowed upon His blessings, because I think hard work pays off. You know, Allah hi janta hai, beshak. Lekin we have somebody over here who we really want to talk about why she picked up on news anchoring in the first place. If he thinks it's a lucrative business to be in, if it's a good career path, especially in Pakistan where you only have one English news channel which still exists. I think that's what the question is. So without any further ado, why don't you introduce her?
Okay, so I really wanted to introduce a very esteemed and worthy guest. She happened to be the news anchor, and she is Naila Shuja. Assalamu alaikum, and thank you so much for coming to World this morning.
Thank you so much for having me on your lovely show. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm very, very grateful.
Thank you.
How are you guys doing?
Absolutely perfect. Thank you very much for joining us. Wonderful to have you. And you know what? I do the same. Whenever somebody actually invites me on their show, since I happen to be a host myself, I end up asking them as well, Hanji, aapka kya haal hai? So it's great. Naila, thank you very much for joining us. You know, so we started from decision making. Why did you in the first place decided that, okay, you want to be on TV and that you wanted to be a news anchor? Because to be on TV, you could have been an actor, a singer, model, anything. Why news anchor?
Oh my gosh, that is a loaded question. I think it all started when I was in school.
Wow.
So I was hosting various events. Like, there was just this passion to be in front of people. There was just something that gives you that confidence, you know, that boost, the adrenaline that really pushes you through. So I think it was that carried me to, you know, finally becoming a news anchor eventually. And so from hosting events from a school level to eventually going to, you know, doing my A-levels there as well. And then my university actually really pushed me.
Which university did you go to?
I actually went to Bahrain University, Islamabad. And everyone there, especially those from the media department, in fact, the social science faculty and the media faculty, I have all praises for them, because they were the ones who actually pushed me. They're like, oh my God, you have so much personality, you have this, you have that, why don't you just try it? So I did, and I kind of fell in love. And you know what they say about love, once you're in it, you're just in it, you know? Either it's gonna break you or you're gonna break it. So I was like, I dove nose in first. And then eventually I got this opportunity to work with one of my seniors or my faculty from Bahrain University in their private business, which was basically being a YouTube channel host for a show. And one of the best experiences I've had because I got to meet various journalists such as Amir Ghori, and just I kind of fell in love with the art of interviewing people. It's such a craft, and the way you have to interact with people, the stories you get to hear, the adventures, again, as you mentioned, the adventures that they've been on. Oh my God, it's phenomenal. Especially those conversations off camera, amazing.
Just like the one we had early in the morning.
Yeah.
But yes, that's how life is, and it makes it interesting. But I would want Hajra to kind of answer this as well, because you happen to be one of the most ace news anchors over here in PT World 2 as well, and then you have transitioned from news anchoring to being a host, right? So what do you have to say?
Okay, so when you as a news anchor, I think that it's just you're reading news, of course, and you need to be very well aware of what's going on politically, internationally, economically, and whatnot, right? And you have some fixed parameters in which you have to play yourself, right?
Yeah.
So it's mostly the script that you have to read, and for the question and answering sessions, mostly.
Are you saying that you're caged most of the time as a news anchor?
No, not at all.
What do you mean by parameters then?
So basically, when you are
यार
doing
ये
the
हो
show,
सकता है, ये नहीं हो सकता.
no. So what I mean by that is when you're doing the show, you can talk about the little gupshup that you are having. You can't do that when you are.
I used to, by the way, when I used to do news, because I've been a news anchor myself too as well. I used to do that. I don't know whether people received it very well or not, but yeah, please continue.
Okay. So I do think that I have a very shy and introvert sort of a personality. I'm not very much into the having a conversation with the people. But when you are sitting in the show, I think you have to be more open about it, and you have to make your guests feel more comfortable about it. So that they can interact with you on the camera very easily, because especially for the first timers, it's really a bit overwhelming experience because they're not that much confident about.
Which is why I'm going to move on to Naila. So Naila, most of the time you do come across news which you're like, okay, you know what? I don't think that this is just as per authentic, or probably authentic itself. And you go to the news editor and you're like, okay, you know what? I think that the figures are wrong or here and there. And you do not get the liberty to kind of edit it or, kind of be the way it was. So what do you do as a news anchor? What kind of character or morality do you really need to carry forward?
Oh my goodness, it is so... you have to be extremely professional.
Yeah.
But the thing is that, again, obviously, if there are facts and figures involved or some sort of data that has been given to you, right? The first thing is that the people in the newsroom who play a very, very crucial part in what the audience sees. They provide all the content. So you also have to have some sort of faith in the facts and figures or the data that they're providing. Because if you don't trust your teammates, then you're not really, you're working as a one-man show.
True.
So if you don't have the trust on your teammates, then it's just gonna flop. But then again, they should verify it from their authentic sources. And again, if you think your source is a little fluctuating, dicey, then you got to make sure that you go back to another source and double check. And if that source is also dicey, go to a third source. Again, it's all about citing your sources. So I think if the whole team works together, you rise, and if the whole team falls, then you fall.
But do you get
again,
the liberty?
you fall together.
But do you get the liberty to kind of correct if they want it to be that way?
Yeah.
If it's based on an agenda, do
Yeah.
you get the liberty as a news anchor to do it? Have you ever done it?
I mean, personally, how about this? How about I say no comment?
No comment, yeah. Yeah, all right. With no comment, I think that the first bit of the answer is actually the answer to it as well.
Yeah.
But in addition to that, because the last part of my question was that what kind of morality do you think that a news anchor really needs to carry forward within their own character and personality to be the one who they are actually?
I think first and foremost, you have to be very honest with yourself.
True.
You have to believe in the news that you are disseminating. You have to hold, especially if it's about your country, you have to hold everything with pride. And if you're not if you don't have that sort of passion about your country, or you're not giving a positive news about your country, then maybe you have to reevaluate things about yourself and the channel that you're working for. Again, I am completely I am a pro-Pakistani. I'm super patriotic. But the thing is that, if something's going against my personal ideologies, I will go eventually and discuss it with my news director or my team and say, you know what, I'm not comfortable with this. Maybe you can give it to someone else who might be a little more comfortable with this,
That's a
speaking
wonderful
this,
answer, yeah.
or again, it's not passing it along. It's also standing up for yourself and your ideology.
But what
and
if there is a breaking news and you're sitting there and you do not have any option, of,
then you got to push through. You have to push through.
Yeah, because you just cannot do anything
Yeah.
other than that.
Right.
You're supposed to do that. You've signed up for that job,
Yeah.
so please make sure that you do your job 100%.
So Shahzad, I really wanted to ask you one question. Why are you stressing so much on the morality, when it comes to the journalism?
Haja, there's a reason because, when I started working as a video jockey for a music channel. And, I used to have long hair, it was always about going to concerts, interviewing superstars, drama artists. Then I ventured into dramas. I've done 4 dramas as well.
Mashallah.
So what I felt, because, I started TV at a very early age. I mean, I was 21 or 22 when I started doing TV. So a lot of people do inspire you, when you see that, hey, you know what, they're under the limelight, they're enjoying a good life.
Right.
And then it kind of pushes you to do things which you shouldn't have.
Right.
And, somewhere in between my life, alhamdulillah, I'm glad that I've got teachers too as well who taught me. I mean, they are always very controversial when I talk about them. For example, Waqar Zaka, I'll speak about him. He's taught me quite a lot.
Okay.
Or probably Dr. Noman Niaz, he's taught me a lot about cricket too as well. But I was lucky enough, I have seen a lot of kids doing a lot of wrong things just because of the fact that the morality didn't stay intact, and they were actually taken through from all of that they saw within that one person who they thought was a superstar. And it's not really important to kind of tread on the same pathways which people have already treaded or trotted to as well. And it's because of the fact that you have to make your own path. Make sure you have your own morality and that people know you for your own character rather than affiliating you. हाँ जी, आपकी शक्ल इससे बहुत मिलती है, आपका तरीका इससे बहुत मिलता है, you resemble him, the way you talk, the way you speak. Please make sure that you have your own identity and always be true to your morals, because then आप लंबी रेस के घोड़े बनेंगे, not a shorter one. All right, that's what is important.
So I do have a countervailing, argument, when it
Sure.
comes to that,
Go ahead.
right? Just for the sake of a discussion, right? So a lot of times, yes, I do feel that, your personal ideologies are important when it comes to your own identity, right? As a person, as a news anchor. But a lot of times, you see that every media has its own guidelines, its own agenda, its own policies of reporting that, right? And not necessarily your personal ideologies matches with those sort of, agenda. And, so if you say, okay, this doesn't match my ideology, I'm going to resign and I'm going to go to another one, right? Maybe it's not very, self-sustaining, or when it comes to, your livelihood, right? When it comes to that, or you do not have many options. So really, what do you do? I really wanted to ask Naila about it.
First you.
Yeah, oh my goodness. I think, again, you have to be very steadfast in what you believe in. Alhamdulillah, I was very lucky and very gracious to have such sort of mentors who didn't actually push me in that narrow line or road that you have to follow this ideology, you have to do this. Again, I went into various channels that suited or that I was comfortable with in terms of the environment, in terms of, as you said, the agenda or the guidelines or the narrative. Again, it's your personal decision that because it's very evident. If you watch television, it's very evident.
Right.
And you should always think before you jump into a contract. Be it, media, working at an MNC, XYZ, whatever it is. You should always be mindful about that. So I personally had very excellent mentors, and I never had to make that sort of decision.
Okay.
So ever since from, school or university, I was always taught, stay strong, do what you believe in, and if someone puts a boulder in your way, well, get a chisel. Get a chisel, that's it.
Exactly. I think that's a very good direction that you put into, for all of those people who might be thinking about it. But I will certainly have a very different perception of it and a very different answer.
Okay.
Do you remember that just yesterday we actually spoke about Nelson Mandela?
Yes.
Where you said that, earlier, obviously, in the initial part of his struggle, what he did was that he was against using force too as well.
Right.
Later on, he changed his plan and made sure that he was going to use force to make sure that people get to see, listen, and understand what he was trying to project. So likewise, now when you start to work somewhere, obviously initially you enter the room, you're standing up, everybody's sitting down. Let them sit down. You start to work with all of those morals you have been keeping intact, And initially you try to conquer. Once, they start to get your vibe, everybody else will be standing and you will be sitting or probably lying down on that couch. But please make sure that you never let go of those morals too as well. But thank you very much, Naila, for being with us. It was lovely to be in conversation with you. And it was fantastic to see such budding, amazing people, who want to do so much and bring so much positivity to Pakistan. It's just aspiring and inspiring too as well. So, for all of those ladies who are out there, babies out there, boys out there, if you want to be one, please make sure that you hold that character. Be always thankful to Allah Almighty, and inshallah you will get to your destiny as well. With that, we're heading out towards a short break. Don't go anywhere. We will be
right back, and we will be discussing some, very interesting topics.
True, and I'm going to fix this as well. It's been hanging. Yeah.
Right.
Good morning.
Welcome back. And earlier on we were talking about the journalism, the newscasting, and how Shahzad always wants to be media more gender inclusive, more diverse, and incorporate the unheard voices of that. Speaking of inclusivity and more diversity, so there are a lot of people who are neurodiverse, especially when it comes to autism, when it comes to dyslexia, dyspraxia, and whatnot, right? And I do feel, and there are a lot of studies which says that okay, if you are giving such kind of kids or people with such kind of disability, is it a disability? We will talk about it. A same inclusive sort of an environment. If you give him an exclusive sort of environment, where they're interacting with people only with the autism. So when they get out in the real world, they might face difficulties in that, So do you remember there was these cartoons, when we were growing up, called Sesame Street? Do you remember that?
Yes. Still do.
Yes. And I think they have now discontinued, right? Something like that.
That yellow big duck, right?
Right. So they were also about, this neurodiversity and whatnot. And, there was a lot of criticism leveled on them, so actually they're giving them a very exclusive environment, where they're only surrounded by people with such like disabilities and all. So without further any ado and, delving into this conversation, I would like to introduce a very able guest who's going to enlighten us about the disability of autism. So we have with us Miss Halima Sadia, who happens to be autism specialist. Assalamu alaikum, and thank you so much for joining World this morning.
Thank you for inviting me.
It's been a long time that you've been here last, right?
I know, it's been I think more than 3 years
Yes,
now.
thank you very much once again. So we have spoken about autism, people, alhamdulillah now. I'm not going to say or give the entire credit to ourselves. I think you've contributed quite a lot. We were over here,
You played your role.
No, thank you very much for that too as well. That now finally people know what autism is, or ASD, speaking about your autism spectrum disorder. So I don't want to get into that, it is for the people to figure it out too as well. And God forbid if there are people, who are living with such people, who actually live with autism spectrum disorder, they would know it already. But now, I think last time where we left the conversation was, how intervention was so important at the early ages too as well, which is great. But what to do after you've intervened, you've made sure that you started to look after, preparing your kid for the adolescence years too as well. How do we do that? So what happens after the intervention?
So a couple of things that we need to keep in mind is autism is a lifelong diagnosis, right? Keeping that in mind and also realizing that it is a spectrum, autism spectrum disorder. So every case is going to be different. Right? Yes, we have discussed a lot about what autism is, what to do once
and you can touch upon it briefly too.
Yeah, so it's a neurodevelopmental disorder. I'm assuming that, mashallah, now our public is a lot more aware. It's been like almost a decade since
people now at least are familiar with the term autism, right?
Yeah, so it's been almost a decade that we've been talking about it. So once you have the diagnosis, we emphasize on getting the early intervention. So that's around between the age of 18 months to 5-6 years. So once you've passed that stage, so during the early intervention, I would emphasize that the therapies that you mainly get are the speech therapy, behavior therapy, and occupational therapy. And if your child has some other issues like comorbidities, then you seek other help as well, like seeing a psychiatrist, psychologist, and
so everybody needs to come together to make sure that you
it's a
attend
teamwork.
to that.
It's a teamwork.
And what sort of environment do they need? I mean, like I talked before, should they be more getting a very exclusive sort of environment where they're surrounded with the people with the same learning disability or neuro disorder?
So one-to-one therapies really help.
Okay.
So now that we're moving on to what happens after the early intervention age, I would say keeping in mind that when we talk about autism, we have to keep the whole family in view, because when you have a case of autism at home, one way or another, the whole family is affected in a way. So may it be siblings, parents, grandparents. That also means that everyone needs to be involved in the upbringing of the child, not just the mother. And that's the case in most,
Exactly, but I think that the problem over here is that, most of the times, obviously, families are not prepared, not even trained enough as well.
Yes.
And alhamdulillah, I've seen a lot of parents, who then kind of delve into it, they dive into it, they make sure to look after their kids too as well. And so what they do is then that's the part where they start to train themselves or kind of get those
Yes.
vocational trainings for themselves and then
Yes.
for the children too as well.
Yeah.
Do you think that's recommended? It will help?
Oh, that
other
is
people?
highly recommended.
Okay.
Parental training or caregiver training is very, very important. And I think that's what we are heading towards.
And what are the challenges faced by, for example, the parents themselves if they have an autistic child, and then the child himself, if he's been looked after by parents who certainly do not know anything about how to look after an autistic child?
So the thing is, I mean, in urban areas, we do have parents who are much more educated. They understand the diagnosis better. They want to learn what their child is going through and help the child and manage their life accordingly. But in rural areas where they don't really know what is wrong with their child and what to do with their child, and most of the time they just leave the child the way he or she is, that's where the problem is. So a lot of work, the good news is that there is a lot of work that is being done. If I talk about, let's say 10 or 15 years ago, there were no centers, no services available anywhere in Pakistan,
Right.
except for Karachi. I remember Karachi had services 10 years ago. But now we even have services in Peshawar, Lahore, Islamabad, Karachi, and services are in Mardan are on their way.
Mashallah.
So yeah, so we have come a long way.
Right.
We have come a long way.
Right.
And
So
when we talk about services, what kind of services do we require though?
So in early years, you need behavior therapy, speech therapy, occupational therapy, and then again, because it's a spectrum disorder, you need to keep the individual needs of the child in view.
True.
Right? So I always tell the parents, a lot of parents come to me and they ask me if they should move to the US, the UK, Australia, whatever. So, there are advantages of moving there, but then there are advantages of being here.
Here
The
too,
kind of support system that you have.
Right.
That if you have to step outside the house, there will be parents looking after.
Yes. So the support system that we have here serves as a respite, facility for the parents, because parent burnout is very common in autism. It's a 24/7 duty. There is no weekend break. There is absolutely no holiday or break when you're raising a child with autism.
All right.
So burnout is very common. So the family support is very, very important. And also, more important is for, other than the parents, the extended family understands the diagnosis and is being supportive, towards the parents,
Right.
and not blaming them, but supporting them. Yeah, that's very important. I mean, culturally speaking, I think that is very, very important.
And exactly that's what is required too as well, that that the entire family needs to come together.
Right.
But over here I'm going to actually address something which I believe that our society does not really kind of playing their part too as well. And there's a stigma attached to it, because what happens is usually that if there's a couple who just had a baby boy or a baby girl, and God forbid they find out that there's this abnormality with their kid, they really do not speak about it in front of their families openly.
They try to
they
hide
want to
this.
hide it. They really don't want to talk about it,
Yeah.
and that's where the parent burnout takes place, because they weren't really sharing. And then initially when things get out of their hands, God forbid, what happens is that then that's where the family comes in, and then they are obviously very overwhelmed by the response of the family, and that's how Pakistani families are.
Yeah.
They would always be there to help you no matter what happens. But why do we in the first place have to hide that, God forbid,
I think there's a lot of pressure on parents.
What
There
sort
is-
of pressure? I think that pressure I'm talking about right now is self-implied pressure by the parents themselves.
The society that we live in, I think we worry more about what people would think rather than what we want from our
or
lives.
what we are going through here.
Yeah. I mean, we're more worried, what others are going to think and how our child should be, rather than if we are happy with our child,
True.
the way our child is.
True.
Because my child is my child, no matter what limitation
True,
he or
true,
she
true.
has, what disability he or she. I mean, he's my baby. He's just perfect to me.
And that's exactly
But-
how the baby is going to be for the khalla, mamu, and chachu too as
Yeah.
well. It's not a problem. And if somebody you think will have a problem, sort them out.
Yeah, you
just
don't
make
need
them
such
sit
people
down.
in life. Yeah.
You really do not need them around. You'd be like, hey, you know what, if you have a problem, make sure you don't come to my house. I'll come to your place whenever I feel like. That's it. Because other than
And
that,
I'll come with my child.
yeah, obviously, why not? Why do we need to leave our kids behind? Why shouldn't our kid be, probably a part of a marriage ceremony or a mehndi ceremony or anywhere?
Absolutely, they should be included in
हाँ जी,
everything.
वो पता नहीं क्या अजीब सा लफ्ज इस्तेमाल करते हैं जी, अच्छा शगन नहीं होता। यार खुदा का खौफ करो, तो इंसान के बच्चे
Things are
बनो।
changing.
Yeah, I think
Shazad,
मैं
things
उर्दू
are
में इसलिए कह रहा हूँ,
changing.
इंसान के बच्चे बनो। The society needs to celebrate each and every individual. The diversity. Not anybody is just born out of the sky. हाँ जी ठीक है जी, ये बस इधर पैदा हो गए. Unfortunately, I think what we really need to think is that everybody has to contribute to the society, and there are people who are autistic and they've contributed to the society quite a lot, and there are examples of that too as well. So, which is why I want to come down to how we get rid of this stigma, even though that to major
Things
extent
are getting better. You'll be surprised to know that the problem that we're talking about right now is either you see in the very, very low middle class
Yes.
or the upper class.
Yeah.
I mean, they don't want anyone to know if there
छुई-मुई
is.
नहीं होते जो.
I'm just saying, the cream of the society, they tend to hide.
कोई
I mean,
cream
that's
नहीं
what
है, वो
I mean, well, so-called.
Nobody
So-called.
likes cream anyways.
So,
Yeah. Creams have to be
so-called.
thrown away.
So-called, that's what they think.
Yeah.
So a lot of families are coming from a very well-off backgrounds. They normally ask that please do not let anyone know about the diagnosis of our child, and if our child we cannot send our child to a therapy center, to a special needs school because we belong to flan family, and it's going to be a problem for us.
True. Which is why what I wanted to move on to now is that, since it's a spectrum disorder, from one individual, do you think that, they had very different traits while they were growing up, and once they've grown up, it might change, or, there might be diversification in their behavior? Well, not adversity, probably, God forbid. If that's the right word to use.
Every stage, when we talk about autism spectrum, every stage can be different.
Different.
And we cannot predict anything. We cannot give like a
So,
solid
for example, if
diagnosis.
we are to draw a fair comparison, so how different can it get?
It really depends on case to case.
Okay.
And interestingly, I'll tell you one thing. When I was studying in the UK, we used to have guest lectures, and one of the ladies who came in to give us a lecture was on the spectrum, and she told us that she spoke for the first time at the age of 60-something. Oh. Until then, she was mute.
Yeah.
Oh.
So I mean, never to lose hope, but keeping in mind that around 40% of the individuals on the autism spectrum remain nonverbal.
All right.
Right? But again, talking about what to do after you've passed the early intervention age. So if you feel that your child is not verbalizing, you need to give your child a way to communicate, whether it's through verbalizing, or non-verbally. It
Cell
could
phones,
be
tablets can probably make your life easier too.
flashcards, sign language. There's another method called PECs. So I mean, you don't want your child to get frustrated because he's unable to communicate. You need to give your child a way to communicate. That's very important. So you've come at a certain age, let's say 7-8 years. Your child is 7-8 years, and you've realized that he's not speaking, and probably you've done all what you wanted to do. So now is the time to think about alternative modes of communication.
Wow, that's wonderful. Thank you very much, Ms. Salima, for being with us. It was lovely to be in conversation with you.
Thank you for inviting me.
And obviously, this is something which is coming from an expert, but what I would recommend over here is that, that now, alhamdulillah, services are available all over Pakistan, even in Mardan now as well. So please make sure that you consult somebody who's a professional. I think why I would recommend Ms. Salima is because she's gone through it herself. She knows how things are and how things can be dealt with. And, when that certainly gives you confidence that, okay, I'm taking my baby to somebody who's been through it herself, and that she will be giving me the most fair advice as well, because I do not want you people to end up in a therapy where they were just making money out of you as well. So you really not need to be in conversation, because God forbid, when I had a medical condition, I actually had to go to people who had the same medical condition so that I can get this right piece of advice.
That really
because
helps.
unfortunately, we do have doctors, engineers, people, they will be just like shopkeepers. They have their products, they will sell them. Whether you benefit out of it or not, it's none of their concern. So please make sure that you always go to somebody who, first of all, has a lot of empathy, sits down with you, listens to you, and only then talks about the solution, or whatever solution they think was better for themselves, or probably might add on to you and you know kind of eases your pain and relaxes you down as well. मैं दुआ करूँगा इंशाल्लाह अल्लाह पाक सबको शिफा दे.
Thank you.
Ameen. So, and I do feel that, you know, that people who have this, you know, condition and who are neurodiverse. So I was reading somewhere that, you know, that these agencies like CIA and something, they're looking for actually the people, you know, with the autism because, you know, they're really good at identifying patterns and, you know, they really have a very creativity inside them, which, you know, commoners might not have that in that sense. So I think that's a diversity and we need to celebrate it rather than, you know, hiding it. And as ma'am mentioned, you know, a lot of people are coming in saying, you know, let's keep it secret and, you know, do not tell anyone that, you know, our child has this. So it's not a, I mean, it is a disability, but it's not something to be ashamed of. It is something, you know, we can manage and we need to celebrate that. And that gives you confidence in the child.
And if you manage it the right way, they can actually make you very proud too as well. And while speaking about it, you know, since it was so heartfelt, you know, I could just get the goosebumps. I was getting the goosebumps too as well. Thank you very much for a wonderful message. Thank you very much, Ms. Salima, for being with us.
Me.
At this time, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to make somebody's day fantastic because it happens to be Habib's birthday. So, Habib, we want to wish you best of luck. Habib happens to be one of our coordinators' brother. Habib, congratulations. Happy birthday to you. May you have many more. Happy birthday, Habibur Rahman. Stay away from Atikur Rahman.
Happy birthday,
Happy birthday, Habib. अपने बड़े भाई से दूर रहना. शरारती लड़का है वो.
birthday to you.
Habib, you know, ताकि हबीब अगर सुन रहा हो उसको भी समझ आए. हबीब बड़े भाई से दूर रहना. शरारती लड़का है वो, सही काम नहीं कर रहा है. अच्छे इंसान बनना, हमारी तरफ बनना, हाजिर मैडम की तरफ बनना, सब बनना. लेकिन on the lighter side, obviously हबीब अल्लाह पाक आपको, you know, may he give you more and more success in life and you grow up. आप अपने पेरेंट्स की आंखों की ठंडक बने. आमीन सुम्मा आमीन. और भाइयों का बंधन बहुत अच्छा रहना चाहिए. So please make sure that you focus on that too as well. For everybody who's outside, ladies and gentlemen, please make sure that you write to us on our Facebook page, which is with the name of
Well, this morning.
on Twitter,
Well, this morning.
on Daily Motion and YouTube.
Well, this morning.
And the fabulous Habib's going to be at 10:05 tonight. Till the next time, look after yourselves. 1, 2, 3. Good
Good
morning.
morning.